So a number times its multiplicative inverse always equals 1. And the multiplicative inverse is also called the reciprocal. You might have heard that one before. The reciprocal of a number is found by flipping a fraction. We'll get a few reciprocals here in a second. So what other type of inverse have we talked about? Anybody remember? Multiplicative inverse, there's another one, also called opposites. Start with an A. Additive inverse. Okay, so now we're going to see how these two work together. If you added together two additive inverses, what did you always get? 2 and negative 2, 10 and negative 10 equals 0. When you multiply two multiplicative inverses, it's always going to equal 1. That is because if you get 0 when you multiply, what did you have to multiply by? Maybe? 0. So the multiplicative inverse for every number couldn't be 0. It's got to be something different. And so that's why multiplicative inverse always equals 1. Okay, so some reciprocals, and then we'll multiply them and see that they always end up getting us 1. If we had 4 over 5, the reciprocal of 4 over 5 would just be the flip version of it. It would be 5 over 4. If we multiply these two together, we get 20 over 20, and 20 over 20 simplifies to 1. Okay, what if we had 1/2? The multiplicative inverse of 1/2 would be 2 over 1, or just 2. And 1/2 times 2 over 1 gets you 2 over 2, which is 1. What about the multiplicative inverse of 3? The reciprocal of 3. How should we write 3 to make it look like a fraction? 3 over 1. When we write it this way, it's a little easier to see what the reciprocal is, because if you flip 3 over 1, you get 1 over 3. And if we multiply these two together, we get 3 over 3, which simplifies to 1. So the reciprocal, the multiplicative inverse, we're going to be using that in every division problem with fractions. Okay, and here's some examples of reciprocals. But these two are the same thing, so make sure that you remember what both of them are. All right, when dividing fractions, basically what we are doing is multiplying the first fraction in the problem by the reciprocal, or the flip, of the second fraction. So the way that we remember this is with 3 words. And if you do the 3 words, remember, in the correct order, it's going to guide you through how to divide fractions. Keep, change, flip. It's kind of like KFC, but not quite, right? KCF. Keep the first fraction the same. Do not change it. Change the division sign to a multiplication sign, and then flip the second fraction. Once we do those 3 steps, after that, all we have to do is multiply straight across, just like what we did yesterday. So once we do these 3 steps, then it's a multiplication problem, and we're doing the same thing that we did yesterday. remember, keep, change, flip. Keep, change, flip. All right, so let's look at some examples. So we got 1/3 divided by 5. So first of all, if you try to just divide the numbers straight across, that will never work. We've got to do keep, change, flip. Anytime we see a whole number by itself, write that over 1. So we'll do 5 over 1. Because now it's a lot easier to flip the fraction. It's also a lot easier to multiply straight across in a second. So we will keep 1/3 the same. We're going to change the division sign to multiplication and then flip the 5 over 1. So now we have 1/3 times 1 over 5. We do keep, change, flip. And then we just multiply straight across like we did yesterday to get 1 over 15. 1 over 15. Also, thinking back to yesterday, before we're finished with our problem, what should we look to do if we need to? Simplify. Yep, make sure we do that still. Second thing, the positive and negative rules, they still apply for dividing fractions as well. So if you need to use that triangle to get the sign of your answer, you can always do that also. So, -4/5 divided by 8 over 9, a negative divided by a positive, we know our answer is going to be a negative. Let's go ahead and put that negative sign there. We're going to keep -4/5 the same. We're going to change division to multiplication, and we're going to flip 8 over 9 to 9 over 8. So now we've got -4/5 times 9 over 8. Multiply straight across. So we get -36 over 40. -36 over 40. Do we need to simplify?
Yeah.
What can we divide 36 and 40 by? What can we divide 36 and 40 by? Alex?
2.
We can divide by 2. Let's divide by 2. We divide by 2, we get -18 over 20. Are we done? No, because we also need to divide this by 2 as well. So we get -9 over 10. And that is in simplest form. If we didn't want to divide by 2 twice, what else could we have divided by? AJ? By 4. That would have just done it once. And we would have got straight to -9 over 10. All right, any questions? Okay, on these next 3 that you're about to do on your own, once again, if you see mixed numbers, what is the first thing that you have to do before you can start dividing? Turn all mixed numbers to improper fractions first. So make sure that you do that before you start dividing. Alright, so our first one here. First of all, we've got a positive divided by a negative. So what do we know about our answer already? It's going to be a negative answer. Okay. Change that 5, or make that 5 a 5 over 1. Change the division sign to multiplication. And then flip negative 1/4 and make it negative 4 over 1. So now we've got 5 times negative 4, which would be negative 20 over 1, or just negative 20. Alright, we know a negative divided by a negative is going to get us a positive for the second one. So if we know our answer is going to be positive, I would just forget about the negative signs at this point and just focus on 2/3 and 3 1/3. So 2/3, nothing's going to change. I'm going to go ahead and write it still as division because we've got to change this 3 1/3 to an improper fraction. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 would be 10 over 3. Now we can, so that's another thing, I didn't mention it before. You cannot do keep, change, flip until the mixed numbers are improper fractions. Because you can't really flip a mixed number. So turn it to an improper fraction first, and then you can flip it. So we'll make this 2/3 times 3 over 10. And then multiply that, and we're going to get 6 over 30. Can we simplify 6 over 30? Yeah, what can we divide both 6 and 30 by? Charlie? We can divide by 6. Yeah, we could do 2 or 3, or we could just go straight to 6. So this is just going to take one time. We should end up at the very end with 1 over 5, 1/5. If you divided by 2 or 3, you would have to do one more step of simplifying, and you should get at the end 1 over 5, regardless of what you simplify by. Alright, and then 2 4/5 divided by 1 1/2. So change to improper first. 2 4/5 would be 14 over 5. Divided by 1 1/2 is 3 over 2. And then keep, change, flip. So 14 over 5 stays the same. Change division to multiplication. Flip 3 over 2, make it 2/3. So now we've got 14 over 5 times 2/3. 14 times 2 would be 28. 5 times 3 would be 15. So we get 28 over 15. 15 goes into 28 how many times? Just one time. And so what are we left over with? We take 15 away from 28. 13 over 15. So 1 13/15 would be our answer. All right, any questions? Okay. If not, let's look at this next one together then. So it says on Saturday, Lindsay walked 3.5 miles in 1 2/5 hours. What was her walking pace in miles per hour? I'm going to test you here real quick. There's a word that tells us that we need to divide. Does anyone remember what word in here means to divide? Chris? Per, yes. Per means divide. And miles per hour is the same thing as saying miles divided by hours. So that's going to tell us what order we need to put this in. Miles is going to come first, 3 1/2, divided by hours, 1 2/5. Just try and make sure that you guys are aware, it's not always going to be in the correct order in the problem. So you need to look and see how they tell you to set it up based off of these miles per hour and make sure your numbers are in the right order when you divide. So from here, change 3 1/2 and 1 2/5 to an improper fraction. 3 1/2 would be 7 over 2. divided by 1 2/5 would be 7 over 5. And then do keep, change, flip. It's going to become 7 over 2 times 5 over 7. And then multiply straight across. 7 times 5 would give us 35. 2 times 7 is 14. So we get 35 over 14. Okay, we need to simplify it. Can we divide 35 and 14 by the same thing? We can, yes, we can. We divide 35 and 14 by?
7.
By 7. Let's do that first, because then making it a mixed number is going to be a lot easier. We do 35 and 14 divided by 7. That becomes 5 over 2. How many times does 2 go into 5? 2 times, right? And then if we take 4 away from 5, we've got 1 left over. So our answer would be 2.5 miles per hour. 2.5 miles per hour. Okay, questions there? All right, and then our last one here. A bottling machine needs to be restocked with new lids every 2 3/4 hours. If the machine runs for 19 1/4 of an hour, how many times will it need to be restocked with new lids? So what we're saying is it runs for 19 1/4 hours. Every 2 3/4 hours, we're restocking it. So we've got this entire length of time, and we're going to go through and restock at different parts. What am I doing with this length of time? I'm dividing it up. I've got the whole thing, 19 1/4. I'm dividing it up into 2 3/4 sections. So that's what we're going to do with these two numbers. 19 1/4 divided by 2 3/4. Another way you can think of it is how many times do I have to divide 19 1/4 into this many hours, 2 3/4 hours. So 19 1/4 need to make that into an improper fraction. 19 times 4 is 76. And 76 plus 1 is 77 over 4. Divided by 2 3/4. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus 3 is 11 over 4. And then do keep, change, flip. So it'll become 77 over 4 times 4 over 11. And then we will multiply straight across. $77 times 4. $308. All right, which do we think would be easier to do first? Change to a mixed number or divide 308 and 44 by the same thing? Divide it by the same thing. That might give us some smaller numbers to change to mixed numbers. What can we divide 308 and 44 by? Are they both even? So we can divide by 2. All right. So 308 divided by 2. 44 divided by 2 would be 22. 308 divided by 2 would be 154. Can we divide 154 and 22 by the same thing?
Yeah.
By 2 again. So divide these by 2 one more time. $154 divided by 2 is 77. Okay, I think we can finish up from here. What's 77 divided by 11? There you go. So it's going to need to be restocked 7 times. Questions? Good. All right. We got some problems to be working on then.